What is the most disturbing fact you know? Story 1. When gas was introduced into common households during the Industrial Revolutions, people started paying more attention to what they put on their walls now that they were lit up. They began decorating more, and wallpaper became a much more important part of the modern home. At the time, green was a very popular color, as it had never really been an option to decorate with that color before. However, the green color was obtained with arsenic, as white paints were often obtained through a lead product. After a while, wear and tear made it so that people literally started breathing in bits of their arsenic wallpapers and feeling bad within their homes. Their doctors would then suggest they go on holiday to the sea, as the ocean air often had proven a successful remedy. But of course, it was a remedy simply because they were no longer breathing in arsenic. The companies that made these wallpapers were well aware of their nefarious effects, but it took people boycotting en masse for them to actually stop production several decades later. Story 2. One of the more recent things I learned about is the Paria diving disaster, where 4 divers got sucked up into an underwater pipe and 3 of them got stuck in there. The company decided to wait until they were dead instead of doing a rescue operation because of money. They said they heard banging for 3 days until it finally stopped. Not a fun way to go, inside a dark pipe alone, cold and scared. Damn, may those souls rest in peace. I saw this in an Expo video on YouTube recently. One of the divers was brave enough to venture by himself to see if he could find the entrance to get help. He was miraculously able to find it and get rescued, and when they told him they had no intentions of saving his friends, he nearly climbed back down the pipe to rescue them himself. He seems like such a genuinely heroic man, and I can't imagine the amount of survivor's guilt he deals with because of those selfish, greedy pricks. Awful situation that should not have resulted in the way it did. Story 3. Australians' greatest enemy isn't spiders, drop bears, killer roos, massive insects, or devil snakes. It's the sun. Australia has the highest skin cancer rate in the world, and an Australian is 4 times more likely to develop skin cancer than any other type of cancer, and 2/3 of Australians would be diagnosed with it by the time they reach the age of 70. Story 4. During the cleanup of Pearl Harbor, as the recovery crews for USS West Virginia, BB-48, got deeper into the ship months after the attack, they discovered bodies high in the engine room and a locked storeroom where air bubbles had kept them alive for 2 weeks based on calendars they used to keep track of time. That was well after divers had made their first passes over the ship listening for sounds of survivors. Story 5. That Munmora power plant in Australia was allowed to operate for decades with a significant diesel leak in an underground reservoir that contaminated the water table. When demolishing the plant, you could light the sand that surrounded the tank on fire about 50 meters each way, and if you dug lower than the sea level anywhere within about a 1 kilometer radius, you could smell diesel. It's a high fishing surfing area. That was far from the only contaminant. PFAS, PFOS, chromium, etc. People live very close to it. People eat the fish for years from the hot water outlet. Was a super popular secret fishing spot. Also during the demolition, there was lots of contaminated water collected. This was sent through a filtration process and pumped into the ocean. It had multiple sediment filters and a water or oil separator. I do not believe it was adequate filtration before it was sent back into the sea. No one seems to know. I only know because I was part of the work post-operation. Makes me wonder how many heavy industrial entities got to do who knows what and get away with it. Story 6. I was a social worker. I saw a lot. The first 3 weeks, we were in a classroom doing intensive training. Every day someone would walk out. It wasn't out of being rude, it's because each person has a point at which they cannot go any further. They showed us some of the worst. The deal is, they do it for a very good reason. If we are so horrified that we refuse to learn about the abuse, how will we recognize it in one of our kids? That's what I ask of all adults. Please, if you see something, don't assume it's impossible so you can push it out of your mind. A whole lot is possible. Story 7. A lot of people in nursing homes will die shortly after family leaves. I've had funeral directors tell me this is very accurate. Both my parents did. We were there, left for the night, and while gone, they died. It's like they don't want to expire in front of anyone. In my dad's last few days, Me and my mom were there constantly, playing music, talking, just sitting, and just waiting, really. There were a couple of times we thought it was it, but nope, he was still going. We knew it was imminent, that he'd started the process of actively dying so wouldn't come back, but it looked like he'd hang on for a while. So the nursing home and hospice encouraged us all to go home, get some actual sleep, not be on alert and rest up, and come back tomorrow. I was in college in my studio. Mom was staying at our old house. Hospice was about smack in the middle of the two locations. I remember getting to my apartment, stumbling into bed, and just sleeping. Somehow my phone got muted. Yeah, that's the night he decided to pass, the one where we all had our phones turned down and were trying to get some rest. It was really funny in a way, and very like my dad to do. Wait till we weren't looking, and then go, gotcha. I don't know how aware he was of us being there, so if it was just waiting for people to leave or that's just how long he had in him. He was on a lot of morphine in the end, to make it easier, so he may have known, or may have not. Story 8. A rare medication reaction called Stevens-Johnson syndrome can cause your skin to blister and eventually peel off, similar to a third-degree burn victim. It's a horrible drug reaction and has a very high mortality rate. It can be caused by almost any medication, including ones you have already taken before and had no prior reaction to. The most common medications that cause it are antibiotics and anti-epileptic medications. Story 9. I recently listened to a podcast called Hunting Warhead, and the most disturbing thing on there was everything, including the fact that there are dark net sites that are dedicated to the literal torture and murder of children. That was mentioned for all of maybe 5 seconds during the series, but it stuck with me. Also hearing about what creeps actually discuss on these forums, about how to pick kids, what to look for in a family, how to befriend parents, where to work to have access to children, etc. I'm a CPS investigator, and I've heard a lot of crap, but none of it has ever made me cry, like those 2 segments of the podcast. Story 10. Organophosphates, including the chemical weapon sarin gas, work by inhibiting your muscles' ability to relax. Your muscles basically constrict and can't unconstrict, causing what feels like a muscle cramp through your entire body, your arms, your chest, your eyes, your tongue, everything. It most frequently kills via asphyxiation because you can't exhale. Surviving means a permanent, irrecoverable loss of motor function, even with rapid medical treatment. Story 11. At any moment, a nearby star could possibly become a gamma-ray burster and point a jet of radiation at the Earth that would vaporize us instantly. Math says a gamma-ray burster, located 100 light-years away, that aimed at us directly, would generate the energy of 100 Hiroshima bombs per square mile across the entire exposed surface of the Earth. Anything caught in this blast directly would be vaporized instantly. It would also instantly boil the oceans and rip the atmosphere off the planet. It would end all life and leave the Earth a charred cinder in space. And it is 100% impossible to see one coming since it's moving at the speed of light, because gamma rays are light. Story 12. Encephalitis lethargica causes you to slowly survive, but not live. After bouts of deep sleep, where patients can be woken very easily but fall immediately back into the deep sleep, they're left with post-encephalitis symptoms. The main one being that their minds are fully aware and conscious, but they can't physically function, a bit like locked-in syndrome, and they display extreme apathy. They even know they're displaying apathy but can't express any emotions, so they're completely stuck until someone throws a ball at them, which they then can immediately catch, or until someone holds their hand and walks alongside them. Then they can suddenly walk, otherwise nothing. So bizarre. Story 13. If you were to put the entire lifespan of the universe, from the Big Bang to the final heat death, onto a 24-hour clock at the universe's current age, estimated 13.8 billion years, we would not have reached the end of the first 30 seconds. If you were to go into the far future, past the point where there are no more solar systems, the planets have either been destroyed or become rogue planets, where there are no more galaxies, everything either being swallowed up by black holes or being ejected from the galaxy, no more anything of normal matter due to proton decay, and no more black holes due to Hawking radiation, even here at this point, you would not have reached 12 o'clock or noon on our universe clock. The universe will spend most of its life as a dark, cold, empty void. You would be unlikely to find a single surviving subatomic particle in an area the size of the current observable universe, estimated 98 billion light-years across, until the background temperature reaches minus 460 degrees Fahrenheit / 273 degrees Celsius, 0 Kelvin, at which point entropy wins, time becomes meaningless, and the universe remains in a cold, dead state for all eternity. Story 14. Due to quantum uncertainty, particles can appear or disappear at random. Usually we're just talking about quarks and other subatomic particles, but there's nothing saying larger particles can't generate. It's just less likely to happen. There is also no intrinsic limit to how many particles can spontaneously appear, disappear at any given moment. Scary answer. This means it is not outside the realm of possibility that you could simply cease to exist for no apparent reason, as every atom in your body simply winks out of existence at the same time. Silly answer. This also means it is not fundamentally impossible, just really freaking unlikely, that your atoms will randomly reassemble, turning you into a giant bowl of tapioca pudding, complete with oversized novelty spoons. Story 15. Got an unusually high rate of birth defects, cancer, and other horrific maladies in your city's population? Surprise. There's a good chance your city is located on or near a Superfund site. There was this giant, decrepit factory that we all hung around as teenagers, mostly exploring and drinking and climbing the old water tower. Never said we were smart. There was a big barrel on site that we'd toss wood in and light sometimes if it was cold outside or too dark. One night the fire department came to make us shovel some dirt over it and get the F out. They let us know it was an EPA Superfund site because of uranium. You'd think they'd put up a sign or something. I don't do much urban exploring anymore. Story 16. I knew a guy who desperately wanted to be transformed into a beaver. He was severely disturbed, obviously, and gradually ended up isolated from all of his friends and colleagues. He was hospitalized multiple times from trying to perform operations on himself. Last I heard, he was on his way to China to meet up with a doctor who could secretly fix him. He legitimately hoped to end up with enlarged incisors, a thick coat of fur, webbed feet, and a large paddle-shaped tail stuffed with fat that surgeons could transplant from his belly. There was lots of talk about breaking, sawing, and rearranging bones, as well as being put in a cage. He said he had wanted this since birth. He also hoped to find a partner who was willing to be transformed. Not sure how easy it is to come across such people. The plan was to eventually meet up with some actual beavers and live alongside them. The procedure was supposed to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, which he inherited from a deceased family member. He said it carried a high risk of mortality. The night my friends last saw him, he was sobbing uncontrollably in the restroom of a local tavern. He told us to take one last look, because the next time we saw him, he would finally be a beaver. I have searched for this man online and never found anything. I like to think that he is somewhere out there on the other side of the world, splashing around and building a lodge. Story 17. I was originally going to post this on TL before I learned their rules. Minimum wage in Venezuela is $6.70 a month. That means that I, who don't have a particularly high salary where I live, Sweden, make about 5 Venezuelan monthly minimum wages per hour I work. Every day I work, I make about 40 Venezuelan months of pay. That's 3.33 yearly Venezuelan minimum wage salaries for every day I work. And that said, the minimum wage in Venezuela was recently raised by over 300%. It was around $2 per month not long ago. So not long ago, I made about 11.4 yearly Venezuelan minimum wages each day I worked. Story 18. Unless you were a nuclear history buff or watched the recent Chernobyl miniseries on HBO, it is fairly unknown how much of Eastern Europe was nearly leveled by the accident because of the meltdown burning through the concrete to a huge water pool below it. Death tolls could have been in the 100 million in a matter of days, and surrounding cities like Kiev could have been leveled. There was also a high chance from this reaction that most of Europe would have been poisoned through air and water supplies. Story 19. In the 70s, Ford did a cost-benefit analysis and determined that their defective Pinto model would cause approximately 180 deaths, 180 injuries, and 2,100 damaged cars. They estimated the cost of lawsuits and vehicle repairs to be $49.5 million. On the other hand, they determined it would cost them $11 per car, $137 million, to fix the defect in the car to make it safer. Guess what they did? Yeah, they decided what's 180 human lives compared to more money? Screw 'em. And boy did they pay for it. The whole situation blew up, no pun intended, further than they expected, becoming a huge ordeal for the company. What's really sad is reading about some of the victims of the Pinto and their terrible deaths. Story 20. This isn't really disturbing, but neither Alaska or Hawaii was going to be the 49th state. A secession movement was going to create the U.S. State of Jefferson, created from parts of Northern California and Southern Oregon, mostly in response to SoCal being so different from NorCal in economy, culture, geography, and basically everything. Their planned date for announcing and starting the paperwork? December 8th, 1941, and then the day before, Pearl Harbor got bombed and the U.S. was sucked into World War II. The plans got thrown on the back burner and never materialized. Story 21. There's only one reason DMSO, dimethyl sulfoxide, is dangerous and is the model chemical for why you wear gloves around all solvents. DMSO absorbs straight into your body and into your bloodstream immediately upon contact. It won't kill you at all. It's completely safe on its own, although huge excess is probably not good. It's what DMSO might have in it. It dissolves both polar and nonpolar things like water or fats respectively. So you could dissolve a totally harmless to touch chemical that is only dangerous if it gets into your bloodstream, in DMSO, and never know. It also makes it an effective delivery method for medicines that you can't eat, maybe because you're too sick to keep anything down. Bonus fact. You'll know if you've touched DMSO. If it touches your skin, your mouth will immediately taste like garlic. Story 22. The greatest mass extinction that our planet ever faced, the end Permian event known as the Great Dying, killed nearly 96% of marine species and 70% of terrestrial. For a while, its cause was a bit of a mystery, but thanks to modern genetics, we might have an answer. You see, geneticists dated the evolution of the archaea methanosarcina's ability to metabolize acetate to approximately 252 million years ago. Before they developed this ability, there was no effective way for acetate to be digested by life forms, and enormous stockpiles of it had accumulated on the floors of Earth's oceans. So 252 million years ago, suddenly methanosarcina evolved a new way to eat acetate, and it had an entire ocean to feast on. It breeds out of control, and as it eats, it farts, releasing methane gas at a level never before seen into Earth's atmosphere, and the planet literally starts to die, suffocated by the collective farts of single-celled organisms. Story 23. Companies like Google, Amazon, and Facebook have been working for 20 years to create an entire new economic model called surveillance capitalism in order to sell you more stuff. This has created an economic incentive to track everything you do, both online and in the real world. In order to more accurately predict what you are going to buy, these companies have decided that modifying your behavior is an acceptable business practice. And as it turns out, you can influence people in a multitude of ways that might even be against their best interest. This is now happening at a global scale and has made these companies extremely rich. To make matters worse, now everyone is doing this. Look up Cambridge Analytica and the book The Age of Surveillance Capitalism for more information. Story 24. Light only travels so fast. When we look at the stars and galaxies in the distant universe, we aren't seeing them as they are now, but as they were hundreds, thousands, even millions or billions of years ago, because the light from them has taken that long to reach us. Some of the things we look at in the night sky no longer exist at all, preserved now only as light slowly expanding out through the universe. The universe is also not one static size, it's expanding. Its borders aren't just getting wider, it's expanding more like a balloon expands, meaning the distance between any given 2 points in space is getting longer, and the expansion is growing faster over time. Now, what's disturbing about these facts when taken together is that there will come a conceivable point in the universe where galaxies will still exist, but the universe will have expanded so much and so fast that the light from all other galaxies will be unable to ever reach another galaxy. Every remaining galaxy will be completely isolated. Intelligent life could still theoretically arise on planets within these galaxies during this time, but when they look up at the night sky, they will see only what is within their own galaxy and nothing more, ever. They will have no idea that the universe is, or ever was, anything more than their one single galaxy and the limited number of stars and planets contained therein. With the best technology available to them and a proper application of the scientific method, they will study the nature of the universe and come to the wrong conclusion, only because they happen to be born too late to have had the chance to obtain crucial evidence. All of which begs the question, what might we ourselves have been born too late to see? What knowledge might forever be outside our grasp? Story 25. A very large portion of major scandals are out in the open for a really long time before they're reported. A story just broke of a journalist who had all of the information we have on Epstein now, and she had it 3 years ago. But ABC refused to run the story. It really shows how much the media is in control. There can be public knowledge of somebody doing something, and the public won't react if the media doesn't push it. If you look at the right places, you can find most of these stories months and even years before they come out. I remember reading about how Facebook was stealing all of our private information and selling it years ago, and then it came out after 2016, and I was a little surprised that everybody was shocked that's what they were doing. Sometimes actors or celebrities will make a joke or reference to somebody being shady. Little hints like this that you can pick up on. Shows like The Family Guy have a lot of subtle jokes that predict the future. It sort of makes everything seem fake once you start to pick up on it. So many scandals that nobody even reports on. The media is so fake. Story 26. I don't know if this is a little-known fact, but a current theory states that the quantum fields holding the universe together exist in what is called a false vacuum. That is, they haven't quite reached the lowest possible energy level, vacuum state, yet, and there's some energy barrier stopping them from doing so. So these quantum fields think they're in their vacuum state, but really they still have a little energy to lose. The disturbing part comes in when you consider the fact that, according to quantum theory, these fields have the capacity to spontaneously tunnel past that barrier, allowing them to randomly reach a lower energy state. If a quantum field were to change energy level, the fundamental laws of physics governed by that field would change. If this false vacuum theory is true, this means that at any time, in any place, the very fabric of reality could spontaneously come undone, causing a bubble of absolute annihilation to expand outwards from that point at the speed of light, destroying everything it touches. What's worse is if this theory is true, there are probably already countless bubbles like this expanding across the universe, relentlessly making their way towards us. Imagine, 1 minute you're minding your own business, and in the blink of an eye, every trace of mankind's existence is wiped from time and space.